They told you wealth was about numbers, net worth, credit score, social status. But if that's true, why do so many people with money feel powerless? See, the old 1% had wealth, but it was wealth that lived in bank accounts, brokerages, and balance sheets. Systems they didn't control, held together all by trust they didn't earn. But today, a new 1% is emerging, not because they're louder, but because they opted out. No hedge fund, no tax loophole, no six-figure salary, just a few kilobytes of digital code, and they moved before the world understood it. Because zero point zero 0.01 worth of Bitcoin today might be the signal that separates those who waited to be told from those who moved without asking. Now, this isn't a Bitcoin story. It's a behavioral hierarchy reset. See, here's the uncomfortable truth. The old 1% isn't elite anymore. They're just early to a rigged game. They still beg for yield, still fear tax hikes, still depend on systems that dilute the very value they're trying to store. Now, what they own is fragile. It's held in spreadsheets, custodied by strangers, and tracked by governments, and priced in fiat. But the new 1%, well, they own sovereignty. They don't need yield. They don't chase returns. They don't sell assets. They exit systems and build new ones. And that begins with the smallest but most powerful move. And that's storing value in a form that can't be printed, paused, or politically controlled. Now, not millions, just conviction. And just zero point zero 0.01 worth of Bitcoin self-custodied and never for sale. See, owning 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, which is 1 million Satoshis, isn't about becoming rich. It's about behaving differently in a world where almost no one does. When everyone is maximizing for now, you store for later. When everyone is scanning for alpha, you unplug from the casino. And when everyone is still hoping the system repays them, you're done asking. Because here's the truth. The fiat economy trains obedience. The sovereign economy rewards vision. Now, most people won't hold 1 million Satoshis, not because they can't, but because they never learned to trust themselves more than they trust the system. And that's the split. And that's why it matters. And that's why 0.01 1 million Satoshis isn't a flex. It's a filter. So let's go ahead and go deeper. There's a class forming that no one sees. No suits, no limos, no headlines. Just cold wallets, quiet stacks, and a different rhythm to how they move. Now, they don't need financial advisors. They don't watch the Fed. And they don't plan to retire because they already stepped off the hamster wheel. Now, their time preference isn't low because they're rich, it's low because they see the game for what it is. And that mindset, well, it starts with one truth. I will no longer store my life energy in systems that betray it. And that's why 0.01 worth of Bitcoin will be the new 1%. Now, not because of price, but because it reflects a different identity, and one that can't be co-opted, diluted, or cancelled. So let me tell you what really happens when someone buys 0.01 worth of Bitcoin and self-custodies it. Well, they don't just acquire an asset, they acquire a new operating system. They stop thinking like a consumer and start behaving like a protector. And they ask fewer permission-based questions. They check prices less often. And they feel urgency, but it's quiet, conviction-based, and focused. And over time, this rewires everything. How they spend time, how they measure risk, how they define wealth. Now, it's not financial advice. It's spiritual divergence. And it's happening at scale. Now, not with millions of dollars, but with thousands of sovereign decisions. So, let's talk about the elephant in the room. What if Bitcoin doesn't go up? What if 0.01 worth of Bitcoin never becomes millions? Well, here's the punchline. It doesn't have to. Now, obviously, it would be nice if it does go to millions, and my personal opinion is that over the next couple of decades, this will be going to millions of dollars per coin, but it doesn't have to. Because 0.01 worth of Bitcoin isn't valuable because of its price. It's valuable because of its position. Positioned outside inflation, outside bailouts, outside political risk. Now, it doesn't need to outperform the S&P 500. It just needs to not lie to you. And that alone makes it more honest than a savings account, your 401k, or your fiat-denominated salary. And that honestly, well, that's what the new 1% builds on. Because they're not betting, they're unplugging. And when the rest of the world is still chasing alpha, they'll already be holding the foundation. So let's go ahead and fast forward to 2035. Most people are still scrambling, trying to keep up with prices, policies, new taxes, new crises, and they're still storing value in melting buckets. They're trying to budget their way out of theft. But you stopped playing that game a decade ago. Your asset base doesn't erode. Your freedom isn't priced in fiat, and your decisions aren't fear-based. They're principle-based. And that's what being in the new 1% looks like. Now, it's not flashy, not viral, just unreachable by the systems that reach for everyone else. See, most people think the goal is to beat the system, but that's the trap, because beating the system means you're still inside it. But the real 1%, they don't win by climbing the ladder. They win by walking away from the building. And 0.01, 1 million Satoshis worth of Bitcoin, it's the key. The key to a new architecture of freedom. Not to get rich, but to become ungovernable. Not to gamble, but to opt out. Now, it's not money, it's signal. And those who held it early, not for hype, not for clout, but for clarity, they're not just ahead of the curve, they're off it entirely. Now, you don't need to be loud. You don't need to convince anyone. You just need to be early to the right idea. Because in a world where trust is collapsing, truth becomes the rarest asset. And 0.01 worth of Bitcoin, it might be the last honest signal left. So own it, not to rise in their system, but to build outside it. Because the new 1% won't shout. They'll signal. And those signals, they're already being broadcast. So make sure you're one of them. Now, I have something which you might quickly want to check out, and that is my ebook. They print, you lose. And if you want to understand why the system has always been designed to be rigged against you, then come and check it out down below. And if you come all the way down to the bottom, you'll also find links to the paperback and hardcover over on Amazon. Now, I do also want to quickly chuck this disclaimer in here as well, and I highly suggest just pausing the video and having a little read. Now, if you've made it this far, and if you're looking for something else to watch, then click right here and have a watch of this.